Hey everybody, Mr. Williams here. So here we are in week 6, chapters 10 and 11 this week. Again, I don't really have any regular lecture notes for you, but I did want to talk about a couple of things that tend to be a little confusing, especially in chapter 10. So the first thing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the PowerPoints that you have. So this is the chapter 10 PowerPoint, and I'm just going to skip on down to vitamin A. And one of the confusing things here with vitamin A is how the different types of vitamin A are categorized as far as how much you need to get in your diet. So I don't remember what slide number this is in your notes, but you can go down and find this, the one that's got this blue table right in here that has the different types of vitamin A. So there's you would have seen on a page before this, retinol. There's also retinol and retinoic acid that are listed as the major types of vitamin A. But then there's the kind of the chemicals that become vitamin A as they go through your digestive system. So beta carotene, carotenoids, things like that are all things that once you eat them break down into vitamin A. So there are some of those preformed vitamin A that were mentioned earlier in the notes. So what this page is talking about is the retinol activity equivalent. And what that means is how much of each of these different types of vitamin A do you need to get to actually get the amount of vitamin A that you actually need in your diet. So the most potent form of vitamin A is retinol, the one that ends with the OL. So 1 microgram of retinol, that's what this funky U here is micro, so it's a microgram. So 1 microgram of retinol is kind of the most powerful amount. So it takes, you see the next one down here, that takes 2 micrograms of beta carotene supplements. It takes 2 micrograms of beta carotene supplements to equal the same amount of strength, if you want to put it that way, the same amount of strength that 1 microgram of retinol has. So it takes twice as much of the beta carotene supplements to do the same thing that 1 microgram of retinol does. So I hope that makes sense. So the next one down there, it takes 12 micrograms of dietary beta carotene. Beta carotene would be like the oranges and the dark greens that you get in a lot of your vegetables. Excuse me. These are things that are going to break down into vitamin A as you digest them. So it takes 12 micrograms of this dietary beta carotene to equal the same amount of vitamin A, the same power, the same, that's way I can put it, the same amount of vitamin A as what 1 microgram of retinol gives you. And then, so it's 12 times as much. And then look at this last one down here. 24 milligrams of dietary carotenoids. So to kind of help out with the math here, there is 1,000 micrograms in 1 milligram. So this calculates out to 24,000 micrograms of dietary carotenoids. It takes that much to equal the effect that you get from 1 microgram of retinol. So that's what they mean by the retinol, because we're using the OL, the retinol activity equivalence. So how much of those other forms of vitamin A does it take to equal the same amount of activity, the same strength, as what 1 microgram of retinol does? I hope that makes sense. Please, if you have any questions, make sure you email me, and we can talk a little more about it, and I hope I can make that make sense. Now the main thing here is when you start the assignment, the first assignment for this week, It's going to be assignment 7. The first question actually asks you to figure out how much of one of these, or maybe a couple of them, does it take, again, to equal 1 microgram of retinol. So make sure you kind of understand how this process works. The other thing I want to mention, outside of vitamin A, again, I think everything else in both chapters 10 and 11 is pretty straightforward. It's just, here's the vitamin, where is it found, how much of it do you need, things like that. There's a little bit of some chemistry stuff like what you might find in vitamin A, but for the most part, I think it's pretty straightforward for these chapters. The other thing is in vitamin E. So I am skipping way down in the PowerPoint here, chapter 10 PowerPoint. Vitamin E, just something real quick, and I think you would probably figure this out on your own, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of talk about it here. There's 2 forms that vitamin E can come in. It's chemicals that we call the tocopherols and the tocotrienols. And there's 4 types of each one. So there's 4 types of the tocopherols, and it's done by the Greek alphabet. So alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. So there's alpha tocopherol, beta tocopherol, gamma tocopherol, and delta tocopherol. And then the same thing with the tocotrienols, the alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. And the main thing to take note of here is as a vitamin for us, for humans, the only one that actually does anything for us is alpha tocopherol. So out of the 8 different compounds that we get, or the different compounds that make up the different types of vitamin E, only one of them actually does anything for us, and that's the alpha tocopherol. So it does say that here. Only alpha tocopherol is considered for vitamin E requirements for humans. Other animals, plants, stuff, be able to use some of the other types of vitamin E, but as far as us, this is the only one. Now your one of your assignments, well, it's your discussion board this week, actually also deals with vitamin E. You're going to have to do a little experiment. There is a small amount of cost to it, depending on what you already have at home, but you'll have to look at one of the try this section at the end of chapter 10 in your book. And I do have the instructions in there, but you're going to need to, if you don't have them already, purchase. You can get the cheap knockoff brand, it doesn't matter, but some vitamin E liquid caps. It has to be the liquid ones. And then the book gives a couple of types of oil. I think it's canola oil or corn oil that you can use, and you're going to do an experiment with vitamin E using these oils, and whether fats and oils coming in contact with vitamin E is good for those fats, or if it's not. So that'll be part of your discussion board for this week. So a little bit of a regular science experiment. So hopefully all this is straightforward. The beginning of this chapter does talk about all of the different types of the vitamins. So this week you are dealing with both the fat-soluble and the water-soluble vitamins. Fat-soluble vitamins being vitamins A, D, E, and K. So those will be covered in chapter 10, and then in chapter 11 will be the water-soluble vitamins. So there's basically the rest of the vitamins. There's the B vitamins. There's 8 B vitamins, and then vitamin C, and those would be the water-soluble vitamins. So again, no crash course videos or Bozeman science videos, any of those, even some Khan Academy videos, really. This is about the only lecture video you're going to have for this week. And again, if you have any questions on anything that, again, I know I teach the stuff, so maybe it seems more straightforward to me than what I'm realizing. So, don't let me throw you off if, I keep saying, yeah, this is pretty straightforward stuff, but if you're confused about anything, please let me know, and I'd be happy to help you out. So with that, I hope you all have a great week, And I look forward to hearing from you if you have any questions.